What is up, everyone? Man, shoot the gap. It is I'm going to say, my favorite day of the week because we get to talk the one time, where everybody else gets to listen to us chatter on. Not that we don't talk about IDP constantly, but the IDP podcast for the Fantasy and Frames podcast network. I'm Nate Markham. Of course, with me as always, Jorge Edwards, Mike Wollert, and the Hollywood Titan. Good to have you two back. Mike and I did the heavy lifting, a la Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes we were just talking about. Mike was definitely the Cody Rhodes of this. I'm more like Dusty Rhodes. I'm old, beat up, should be retired, but it's good to have you two back. How did you guys enjoy your little mini vacation? If the weathering the storm of snot that Jorge had and the storms literally in good old Tennessee.
Yeah, I couldn't miss work all week and then show up on a podcast video that night where my bosses, they like to watch our shows, which is great for us, right? Yeah, that wasn't happening. But it's great to be back. It's great to be back.
Hollywood, how are you, buddy?
Doing good. Storms have moved on. It's that time of year we get storms here and there and messes with the internet sometimes. So
I've heard that. But luckily, Mike and I last week, with the help of Tyler, talked about some defensive line rankings in Redraft IDP, using the Fantasy and Frame scoring, using all different scoring rubrics to an extent. We want to talk about some actual football a little bit and go on and then incorporate that into the fantasy aspect because we like to teach, and sometimes it's not as easy as you follow A, B, C, and D, because as we learned last week, we might not have the same rankings. I was put on the spot with Aiden Hutchinson, and looking back at him, and it easily wants to go, I want to go in and make some changes. But Mike, how'd you feel about the rankings last week? Anything change in 7 days from last week to this week?
Not so much. Not really.
There ain't much change. There's not much going on. We are in OTAs right now, and we're getting a little bit of, best shape of their career, unless you're Leonard Fournette, and then, round is a shape. So clearly he is in a shape of his career, yet I shouldn't talk too bad about Fournette. So this week.
Yeah, we're in best shape of my life season. Great catch, no short season, great catch, no pad season. We're it's overreaction. So
exactly, as always.
It's fine. You know what? I hate people that it's you're overreacting. They're running routes and they're making these catches in shorts and there's no one around and blah blah. It's like, you know what? Shut up.
Yeah.
Stop yucking my yum. I'm having some fun.
Stop yucking my yum. I'm having some fun. And we're going to have some fun this week because we get to talk about what I think is probably the most highly coveted position in IDP, the linebacker. Now, as we talked about last week, I don't know what a linebacker is anymore. I don't know what a defensive lineman is. I don't know what an edge rusher is. I don't know what a safety is. Pretty much it is whatever designation they give us to work with. And for our sake, we will explain any of our variants from our overall rankings as far as who qualifies and who doesn't. You guys got any news or anything that you saw that, I didn't put anything down. I didn't have much to talk about. There's no injuries yet that I've seen.
Darius Leonard has that back flare up or whatever's going on.
Shit, yeah. Oh, good call, Jorge. That's huge.
Yeah,
That's
saying,
huge
Well,
news.
they're talking linebackers today, so I figure throw out some linebacker news here and there.
That is and sad as I have Darius Leonard, in my top 7, and part of that was talking about his back injury, and we talked about neck injuries with a certain LSU linebacker that got drafted by the Cowboys and how far that pushes him down. Now that's a little bit more to the degree I don't know exactly with Darius Leonard. Is it a microdiscectomy that he's having done? I would guess that's probably what it is, which is a pretty quick recovery, not any type of instrumentation placed or any type of severe cutting.
What's up, Gator J? Welcome to the show.
Gator. Gator's bitches better be wearing jimmies.
And
so, and there's a obligatory The Guys reference for episode number 8, 9, whatever we're on right now, for that many in a row. You guys just want to jump into some rankings and bash each other relentlessly for the next 45 minutes?
Well, how is that
All
different
right.
from any other? How's that different from any other week?
It's not, except there's no true winner. We're just all losers.
You know what? The
Teams.
viewers are the winners because they walk away with great, awesome information that we're providing.
No, that's a suck up answer, but
That's
fair
right.
enough.
There you go.
Fair enough. So for your viewing pleasure, and if you're listening, we will go through each one and obviously explain the rankings, but we'll take a look at each rankings as a whole, and we'll kind of do like we did last week. Go through and decide and discuss why we may have included some people higher than others, and maybe why there's some people excluded from there. The one thing I noticed that if you look at all four of the rankings is that 3 of the 4 have a certain Roquan Smith as our number 1 linebacker. Now, Hollywood, you have Roquan Smith as your number 4. I don't believe personally, like
Jorge
and I
hates
were
him. That's
saying.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hollywood, why do you hate Roquan Smith?
Or I'm
What
sorry,
did he do
Hollywood
to
hates
you?
him.
I don't hate him at all. I just fantasy wise, I think those 3 right there are probably going to, in redraft, those 3 are going to outproduce him.
And honestly, is there in previous years as deep a solid LB1 that any, like if you look at each one of our 4 top 12s, I would be more than happy to take any one of those as my LB1 and feel really comfortable that it's not going to be just, double the production. I don't think the tiers are as separated as much. Is that crazy to say, Mike?
No, because I've got for my tier 1, I think I've got a 5 linebacker tier 1. If I remember correctly on my tier breakdown.
So I'm sorry, I missed the question.
If you were tiering your rankings and you had like a tier 1, where does your tier 1 stop? At Aluakon, Campbell?
Man, that's a great question. I'd stop it at Wagner, to be honest with you, because there's an argument to be made that, well, we can get into that a little later. But
and we will. And maybe even for a later episode, maybe that's another thing. We'll circle back to some of these and we'll start giving tier breakdowns for our viewers and for listeners, because I think that, as we talked last week, I think a tier breakdown can be more beneficial than just an overall 1 through 15, because if we all feel that Fred Warner versus Darius Leonard is a huge gap in production, well, if it gets to that Fred Warner pick and you're out, then you might as well wait to that second tiering of whoever that may be. Is that Micah Parsons? Is that, Aluakon, et cetera? For my rankings, I'll run through them real quick. Roquan Smith is my number 1, with Bobby Wagner as my 2. TJ Watt is 3. We had conversation about defensive line, linebacker eligibility, and so Jorge and I included them. You guys, Mike, you and Hollywood didn't, but I understand why, and we can circle back and discuss that a little bit. But Devon White's my 4, Jordan Brooks is my 5, Fred Warner, followed by Darius Leonard, Eric Kendricks, Micah Parsons, Blake Martinez, Aluakon, Devandra Campbell, Tremaine Edmonds, Isaiah Simmons, and Logan Wilson to round out. Guys, let me ask you two, Hollywood, you and Mike, with TJ Watt. I think we discussed this a little bit, Mike, last week, but Hollywood, let me ask you this. TJ Watt, where does he rank in your linebacker rankings, or do you have him at all ranked as a linebacker? Did you exclusively keep him at defensive end edge?
Yeah, I mean, I had him as an edge, which I can understand the argument. He's linebacker eligible. You got to rank him if he's there and can play him if he's there. So, I mean, if I'm in a league like that, I don't think he's going to repeat what he did last season. I expect a little bit of a drop off. So if I'm looking at my rankings right here for redraft, I would, if I'm ranking him as a linebacker, I'd probably put him probably right behind Martinez, ahead of Leonard, I think.
Okay.
Let me just looking at it, that's kind of where I'd slot him in at.
In fantasy and frame scoring, let's say that TJ Watt scores 60 points less than what he did this year. That's a pretty significant drop off, right? Don't you think that's plenty to say a downgrade from what he did last year?
Oh yeah, that's a very significant drop, I think.
He would still have been the number 1 linebacker overall in scoring. Now, fantasy and frame scoring, the difference between a lot is quarterback hits are weighted a little higher. And TJ Watt is, as we all know, I mean, in quarterback hits. He has 152 of them in his career. 152 quarterback hits, 98 tackles for a loss. He's just, I mean, again, it's know your scoring settings and work on that. And so the next one I want to ask you guys about with Fred Warner. I know it's like Jorge, you have Fred Warner as your 14. I have him at 6. Do you see there's a huge gap in my 6 ranking and your 14, or are you down on Warner just a little bit this year?
It's one of those things where it's like, you keep adding people to the top of your list, and then, you have to move somebody down and keep moving somebody down. And that just happened to be Fred Warner. I could very easily see him being a top 6 linebacker, but just because of the people who I'm putting ahead of him is why he kind of got bumped down to where he was at 14. I love the San Francisco linebacking core. What makes Warner really an attractive linebacker, one, potentially for you in your fantasy leagues, is the fact that Azeez Al-Shaair and Dre Greenlaw, they're still both battling injuries. We don't know which one is going to be the one who's going to be taking over, playing next to Fred Warner this season. So maybe I'll bump him up a little bit, but I think for me, it was just the fact that I had so many people above him that he just ended up falling down my rankings.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be probably the common theme with a lot of these names is intermingle a couple spots. The one thing that stood out to me with Fred Warner that I thought was just crazy to rationalize is he's 25 years old. I mean, he just seems like he's been in the league for a lot longer than what it is. And in that time, I mean, he's averaged 80-plus solo tackles every season. His big thing is his coverage grade, too. So that if he's thrust into, couple different roles, he can succeed and do so at such a high caliber level. He was the one downside about Warner in San Francisco. And I'll ask you guys if this goes into when you're doing your rankings, especially for linebacker. Mike, let me ask you this. San Francisco was the 4th lowest blitz percentage of any team in the league. Number one, do you expect them to stay low in the blitz percentage? I don't know if you'll know that answer or not. But do you look at stuff like that when you're making your rankings from a player like Fred Warner?
I mean, I don't really look at his blitz percentage per se. I kind of look at what he's done from a pass rush perspective. Last season, he missed a game. Plus, he normally has a few picks during the course of a year. Like in 2019, he had a pick. 2020, he had 2. Last year, he didn't have any. Defended passes were down a little bit. So I expect a few of those numbers to go back up. Plus, some of the guys that he finished behind in scoring, I don't expect to repeat those numbers. Like Jordan Hicks, I don't expect to repeat the numbers. Certainly not Alex Singleton. I don't expect Kazar White to repeat his numbers. And one of the guys that obviously all 4 of us can agree on is not going to repeat his numbers next year is Denzel Perriman. Correct. So I think there's a few guys that are in front of him that I think he'll have a shot to kind of shoot up. So I think Warner's hitting kind of his stride. And I think he's kind of hitting really his what's the word we look for, the peak, or he's hitting the peak of his career, or whatever that word, or I can't even think of it. When someone hit, thank you.
There we go.
He's kind of hitting the prime. Thank you,
host here. Got it.
I think he's really hitting his stride and really kind of start hitting the prime of his career.
I hope so. I do believe so. I think last year I remember even seeing a lot of the hype that he was going to be asked in the D'Amico Ryans defense to be asked to rush the passer more. And he was actually rushing the passer at the fewest percentage of his career. So maybe that turns a little bit. And they got 25 defensive linemen. I think the 49ers defense is more than capable of getting to the quarterback, and maybe they'll blitz a little bit more. Jorge, of my rankings, who do you have the most question about? And Gator has a question, actually.
Yep, let me pull that up real quick. Sorry, I have half.
And maybe and I can explain a little bit of mine, seeing that I'm the highest on here. Is Devon White's all over the place in the 4 of y'all's rankings. So me, number 1, I have him the highest. So I will explain why I have him the highest. And then you three collectively, Hollywood, you have them in that top 5. So we'll let Jorge and Mike discuss why Devon White's down just a little bit. But my reasoning for him is, if you just go back to 2020, he was the number 1 overall fantasy pro scoring linebacker. Granted, we use fantasy and frames, but as a point of reference, I think last year was, really a down year. A down year consisting of 128 tackles, 87 of those solo, the 3.5 sacks, which were obviously low. The one thing with that is that you would think that is a direct relationship maybe to the pressures being low or the pass rush. Now, that's not the case. His pressures last year were actually as many as both 19 and 20 total pressures combined. So he was getting to the quarterback. He just wasn't collecting the sacks. And I think that I can at least agree, because I'm saying it. Maybe you guys can agree with me. I would look at the pressures and assume that the sack totals would have to go up from – now, he had 3.5, so I'm not expecting it to be 10, double digits or anything. But I think we could see a return to 7 sacks wouldn't shock me. And this was the first time in his career that he had no turnovers forced. Those numbers are outliers. They should go back up. And if he can repeat he was already the number 1 2 years ago. There's no reason not to think, in my opinion, other than maybe losing your, linebackers coach, that he could be a return to that top 2, top 3, maybe number 1 again. Jorge? What's your take on Devon White?
Devon White would be in my top 3 had Tom Brady not come back, and this team was basically shitting the bed all season long, just from the fact that they would be on the field, meaning the defense. The fact that that's not the case, you have the issue of the Buccaneers being more competitive. You're probably going to see less opportunities. I want to go back to something that you mentioned as far as the pressures, 31 pressures on the season last year. Part of me thinks a lot of that is attributed to that they didn't really have somebody opposite of Shaq Barrett to rush the passer. Normally it would be JPP, but he was injured most of the year. Joe Tryon, Shoyinka, thank you, came on in limited snaps. He played pretty well, wasn't that great against the run, but he was definitely good rushing the passer. Should see an increased role this year. I believe he's slated to be the starting edge defender there. So part of me thinks they were just using Devon White out of necessity. Part of me wonders if they actually let him take more of a coverage role this year with that outside edge position kind of shored up. And that's kind of why I'm thinking the versatility that we've seen out of Devon White may not be on display this year as it had been in seasons past.
That's fair reasoning. Mike, anything different than what Jorge said as far as your reasoning?
2020, he was just insanely efficient with his pass rush. And his sack to pressure conversion, and that's just unsustainable, especially for his position. And as you can see, the more pressures, the less efficient he got with his sacks. So I think it was an unsustainable number for him. Very efficient, or not? I should say not. His tackles. Also, not really an efficient tackler. 13 misses in 2019, 19 misses 2020, 25 misses in 21. So he's getting all the tackle opportunities for sure, but it's just the sack rate and the conversion, I think, is just unsustainable. I think if you're in really more of a tackle friendly format, he's probably up a little bit more. But I think if you're looking at more balanced, where you're getting a few more points for sacks, or you're getting 1.5 for solos, he's still right there, but it's the sack numbers that are a little bit unsustainable for me, and I think that's really what shot him up in 2020, and that's kind of what knocked him down. He's still an LB1. You can still top 15 in my opinion is a weekly LB1 that you just start him and forget him, but I just think and actually, as I kind of look at my ranks, I kind of am talking myself into bumping Micah Parsons down almost for that same reason. Because if he's going to concentrate more as an off-ball linebacker, those sacks are going to come way down. His sack numbers were insane, and I also don't think are also going to be repeatable. He's an insane player, but like I said, if he's going to concentrate more on as an off-ball linebacker, those sack numbers are going to come way down. And with Parsons, I probably, as I look at my as I look what I have him projected for, where the hell do I even have him? Anyway, go ahead. That's kind of my reasoning with Devon White.
Yeah, and you made a good point there, alluding to Micah Parsons, because I think that was going to be a point of contention for a lot of people as well, is that what role will Micah Parsons play within that defense this year? And is there a chance? I mean, don't get me wrong, it was out of necessity that he was moved into a pass rush situation. But do you think, Hollywood, that there's a chance that maybe they just looked at that and they said, holy shit, Mike Parsons is a good linebacker. There's no doubt about that. But he could be an elite pass rusher, and maybe it wouldn't be bad to sprinkle in a little bit of that opposite DeMarcus Lawrence and actually try to replicate the 47 pressures, not replicate the 47, but see him off the edge just a little bit more. Do you think that's a possibility? You think that he's going to be relegated more to that inside role, or at least, not in the back as much?
He was kind of a hard one for me to rank here, because there was a part of me wanted to give him the TJ Watt treatment, right? Because of his pass rushing ability. So, I mean, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, then I think he drops down maybe off this list just so slightly. But as far as what they're going to do with him, I think they're going to do a little bit of everything with him. They're going to let him play linebacker. They're going to let him come up and rush the passer. It's almost like they kind of don't know what to do with him because he's so good at everything, right? And they need so much help everywhere. So I think you're going to continue to see a mixed bag until they can get some more players in to actually firm up some of these question marks that they have defensively. I think Parsons is going to be – you're going to see him rush the passer. You're going to see him drop back in coverage. You're going to see him just play that linebacking role. So, for me, he was a hard one to rank here, because I just wasn't sure if he falls back into just playing linebacker and they kind of back off the rushing a little bit, pass rushing. He's talented enough to hold his own right there. I've got him, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I think he's still easily a tier 1 linebacker. Just depends on what they do with him and how you want to look at him. I think he holds his own either way. And I don't see a whole lot of change right now. They're going to have to get some more pieces around him before that happens.
And Jorge, that you would agree with that. That's the one, interesting point with Parsons is you take away Randy Gregory, and then you're asking a person like Dorrance Armstrong, who did fill in admirably at times last year. There's no doubt about that. But if you eliminate Micah Parsons from the middle, who steps into that role that you feel comfortable? Like that's the dilemma, right? If you're the defensive coordinator, Jorge, what's more valuable to you? Moving Parsons over on the edge to get more pressure on the quarterback, or taking out a key cog in the middle and leaving someone, I mean, realistically, Luke Gifford, is that who their best inside linebacker is next? Because it's not Jabril Cox, most likely, right?
I mean, that's why they drafted him last year to eventually spot Jabril Cox. Here's the thing. I'm looking at Micah Parsons last year, according to Pro Football Reference, 47 pressures, 30 QB hits. I mean, that speaks to itself. What is interesting, though, when you're looking at the tackling rates here and tackling percentages, you look at Micah Parsons, his total tackle rate was 9.3, his solo was 7.1, his missed was 10.6. So are you really getting something special if he's playing an off-ball linebacker versus what you're going to get rushing the passer? That's kind of why I have him dropped a little bit lower on my rankings, because I still think that they're going to realize, hey, he's better rushing the passer than he was, being a tackler. So that's something to keep in mind there.
Absolutely. So
yeah, he definitely had that tackle efficiency you want from an off-ball linebacker, because I think when he was playing off-ball linebacker, his tackle efficiency was in the double digits. It's just when you played him away as a linebacker, you're going to become less efficient. That's just the name of the game. When you're on the edge, when you're playing defensive line, your efficiency is going to go down just because how things work when you're playing on the edge.
So I would say what's bound to go down, regression, if you will, would be a total tackle volume for a person who, Hollywood, you have as your number 1. Mike, you have as your number 3. Jorge as your number 5. I have Foyesade Aluakon as my number 10. And it's not, again, that I think that he's worse. I mean, I could see Micah Parsons and him flip-flopping in my rankings. It wouldn't shock me. But I have a question for you three. The reason I'm concerned a little bit is not much concerned, is that the fact that he was on such a bad team last year that he had an opportunity to play as much. Does the change to Jacksonville, is that going to play into your, ideas at all? Do you not think Jacksonville's offense is enough, is an upgrade to keep him off? Hollywood, you're shaking no, so I'm going to start with you. You're comfortable. He's your number 1. I mean, I clearly know
he had what?
192 tackles.
192 tackles. Led the league, right? Those are pretty insane numbers. I mean, you're getting some rarefied air when you get close to 200. Jacksonville's not much better. Jacksonville's not much better than what Atlanta. Now they've got a young quarterback. They've got some young pieces. They're trying to do the right thing. But overall, I don't think that roster is any better than what it was in Atlanta, right? They're still going to be probably underdogs in most games. They're playing the Colts and Tennessee twice a year, who, let's face it, they want to run the ball, right? Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. That has to be accounted for. That's not something that he saw in Atlanta. He didn't see teams with running backs that run that heavy. He doesn't really have – I know they have Troy Anderson. They have Rashawn Evans, which I've said it before. If Evans was anything, Tennessee wouldn't have let him go. I think he's the familiarity with Pease and Smith is why he's there. So I guess what I'm saying is there's no real competition. They've got a rookie coming in who I really like, Troy Anderson, but he's a rookie, right? So I don't see anybody impeding his opportunities. And like I said, at 192 tackles, we'll round it off at 200, right? Just to say, be safe. If you take 10% of that away, that's 20 tackles. That's still 180. And I think he could very easily see 175 tackles this year because they're going to be behind a lot. And he's going to be on the field a lot. So, I mean, I expect a reduction because anytime you hit career numbers like that, same with TJ Watt, right? The sacks. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think he's going to fall off is because I did an article. I'd like to look it up again. When you hit 20-plus sacks, there's a natural regression there. I think you're going to see the same thing with Olakun, but I don't think there's going to be enough of a regression off his numbers to knock him out of that top spot.
Gotcha. Yeah, the 90 assisted tackles is the number that stands out to me more than anything. I think that's going to be there. If you're going to see the number drop back down, I believe it'll be that, just because no one's ever recorded 90 assisted tackles. Granted, we have an extra game, but I don't know. I mean, with Caldwell there, he obviously has a very well-defined role with the linebackers. And if you look back, Devon White and Levante David have never combined for 90 assisted tackles in any of the years. Now, granted, that's a far-fetched correlation. It's just, it was a fun stat that I had looked at and thought I'd throw that in before I switch gears. Does anybody have any other kick Nate in the nuts for his stupid rankings before we move on?
Well, we don't really have that kind of time, but
yes, we have all the time in the
world.
It's called
Rochambeau. We don't have time.
Yes, I've heard of that. Jorge, let's talk. Let's look at your rankings here. You as well have Roquan as your number 1. Jordan Brooks is your 2. Bobby Wagner is your 3. TJ Watt is your 4.
Yeah.
Foy Aluakon, Devandra Campbell, Eric Kendricks, Darius Leonard, Blake Martinez. A name that was new to your rankings that I did not have is CJ Mosley, followed by Devon White, Micah Parsons, Cole Holcomb. Mike, here's the homer pick of the day that I look at. The Commanders.
You're not wrong, but I mean, look, he got the tackle volume last year.
We'll get there. We'll circle back.
I'm not hating that, Jorge. I'm not hating that at all.
I'm not hating either. I'm just trying to stir up a little talk, a little Fred Warner. And then Deion Jones. I want to start from the back because all three of you guys have Deion Jones and I don't. Who's not scared of him having a landing spot that we don't know where it's going to be if they actually, move him this year. I'll start with you or Mike, whoever.
Go ahead, Mike.
When it comes to stuff like that, I don't really rank on speculation. I mean, we can talk about it, but there's nothing. But until it happens, I'm going through, and I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, once the trade happens, everybody's gonna say, "Oh yeah, see, we knew it was gonna happen." I'm like, no, you really didn't. I mean, you can speculate. Yeah, there's rumors, and where there's smoke, where there's fire, but he's still there. He's a veteran. He's making a lot of money, yes, but I mean, are they rebuilding? Probably, but he's still there, and I'm trying to. I guess I don't rank on speculation right now. And if you're drafting, I guess I'm still drafting, and you know what? I'll deal with the consequences once it happens. But if a team trades for him, why would they bench him, or why would they limit his playing time if they trade for him? Especially if that team needed an off-ball linebacker or an inside linebacker. So that's why with those two things, that's why he's staying at least within my top 15.
That's fair. Jorge, tell me. Go ahead. Yeah, no, please.
I was going to say, look, with Oluokun there, he still had 137 total tackles, 87, 50 solo to assist. And last year was supposedly his worst performance year, according to all the media, all the coaches. Like, oh, he played so horrible. We're going to try and get rid of him, move his contract. 137 total tackles. I mean, and now you don't have Oluokun there. So why wouldn't that number go up higher? So I'm very happy with Deion Jones in my top 15.
So let's talk about CJ Mosley. Obviously, I look at this and I think, man, as much as I respect CJ Mosley, maybe I'm missing the bus a little bit on it. Maybe I should have had him in. I think I could probably replace Mosley for Tremaine Edmonds. That's kind of one of the ones I go, what the hell was I thinking? And looking back, but sell me on CJ Mosley.
168 tackles, green dot, every down linebacker. Anything else?
Healthy, finally.
Healthy, yeah. I mean, anything else?
Getting a little better pass rush in front of him.
I mean,
yeah,
exactly. That's health is the answer that I guess I was looking for the most part, and that's good to know. And that's something that I don't think there's much speculation on as far as a skill set and opportunity. But Jorge, this is your chance to get the Cole Holcomb love and lay it on thick.
So because I live in the DC area, I'm plugged into local news, and God knows we're churning out a lot of that lately. But in regards to football, in regards to defense, in regards to linebackers, they've been using a lot of two linebacker sets with Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis. And everybody has been saying all offseason, oh, Cole Holcomb, he's going to be the middle. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy running in the middle of this defense. And he put up 142 tackles last year. I mean, he is somebody who I always thought didn't get a lot of respect from the Washington fan base, just from like a real football player perspective. People were just like, oh, he's, whatever. He's okay. He's all right. John Bostic will be our savior. No, John Bostic was not your savior. So Cole Holcomb, he kind of has climbed up into the good graces from a real football standpoint. And you saw his production last year for fantasy, the 142, sub 10 missed tackle rate, just a thumper, and sometimes that's what you need with your top 15 with your LB1. You just want a thumper. Somebody's going to get there, get those tackles. And you look at the running backs, you got, Saquon, you got Zeke, Philly. Well, I don't know who you have at this point, but you have enough volume there. You have the schedule coming out that's pretty good. A lot of linebackers that are prominently featured on their offenses are going to be playing against Washington this year. It's just a good recipe for success having him on your roster.
All right, hey, you know what? That compelling argument. And when we do our Oklahoma drills coming up as the season progresses, if we continue to do so, that will just be a little taster, a amuse-bouche, if you will, of Oklahoma drills.
Wow.
Thank you. I like it. You know what that is?
Isn't it like an appetizer of some sort?
Yeah, it's like a pre-appetizer appetizer.
Yeah.
They bring it out like on a little spoon sometimes, and it's supposed to get your palate going, I guess.
And the only reason why I know that is because I remember Mike Greenberg talked about it on an episode way back when on Mike and Mike.
Are you saying I'm like Mike Greenberg?
Yeah.
I'll take it. Don't answer that. We'll say it. Perfect. I'm probably more like Golick.
I was going to say, yeah, you'll always be my Golick there, Nate.
Thanks a lot. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
You should. He was great.
I love Mike Golick, that whole thing.
I like the day where he was talking about Donald Rumsfeld resigning, and then it was like, no, he didn't resign. He re-signed. Or yeah, it was.
Oh, he resigned. Yes.
Inside joke for those who know Mike and Mike.
Exactly. Speaking of Mike and Mike, let's go to our Mike, and let's look at your rankings for linebackers in redraft. You also have Roquan Smith at number 1. We haven't done Jordan Brooks enough credit yet. I have him bouncing anywhere from as high as 3 to 4 to 5. The difference was, I think, just the quarterback hit numbers between him and Devon White for why I have him below in fantasy and frame scoring. But Mike, one thing, Jordan Brooks, I looked this up. He's one of only 5 linebackers last year with 100-plus tackles and 10 tackles for a loss. He's one of only 2 linebackers in football that had 100 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, and 5 passes defensed. Is there much? I mean, what's the sky's the limit for Jordan Brooks, right?
The sky's the limit, but as you can see, there's one guy in my ranks that you guys don't have. And in terms of drafting, I think Jordan Brooks is going to be an elite option. But when it comes to value and relative to ADP and now the new opportunity, I am drafting Cody Barton over Jordan Brooks all day because he's going to be cheap and he is going to also get tackles. He could also be the play caller. So Seattle didn't do anything to address the linebacker situation. They didn't add anybody. They didn't trade for anybody. So I think they're more than comfortable with Cody Barton and Jordan Brooks as the 3 down guys. Barton in week 16 and 17 combined for 18 tackles over 138 snaps. He played almost 100% of the snaps in those final 2 games when Wagner was out, and he called the plays. So that's the guy that I think I am targeting at Seattle over Jordan Brooks, just because the value is going to be insanely cheap. And that's what I'm looking for. He's got a more opportunity. Brooks has the same opportunity. He's going to have the same volume, but Cody Barton is the one whose role is increasing, and that's the guy who I want this year.
Hollywood, over under 999 snaps for Cody Barton.
Ooh.
Should be an odds maker in Vegas, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's just a tick under that, and I'm going to be completely wrong by saying that. But I think that mark is going to be close, right? I mean, that he's going to be real close to that one way or the other, whether he's over or under. So that's a tough one. I think he's going to be right there.
That's all. Jorge, what about you?
Look, Bobby Wagner had 1,128 snaps. He's basically going to be playing middle. Jordan Brooks is still going to be playing the quote-unquote weak side, even though we discussed last week, or you guys were discussing last week, there's no true designation anymore. So, Wagner or Brooks will still maintain his, dual role of playing in coverage. Over 999. Absolutely.
Nice.
I think Seattle's going to be a bad offense. I think they're going to see a lot of defensive snaps. I've got them both projected at about 1,100.
Gotcha. Which, even if it's, Hollywood's a tick under, if it's 985, if it's 990, you get that type of snaps. And just on a point per snap basis, Cody Barton could very easily finish inside that top 15. And I think that where his ADP is at could be, if you're listening and you want there's no bet, none of us are denying it just takes a little bit of balls sometimes to put someone like Cody Barton in your top 15, and Mike's got the biggest balls of them all. To do that. That's a song reference. You know,
I would ask how would you know, but I'm just going to leave that alone. So we're just. I don't think this is a ballsy move by him. I think this is a great.
I haven't seen Cody Barton in anybody's top 15 necessarily, and I don't question it whatsoever. He's not too far outside of my top 15. I can promise you that.
Yeah, he's not far outside of it, but yeah, I've not seen anywhere that's had him in the top 15 either.
I love it. We're gonna look back at this, and we're all gonna have a share of Cody Barton. I can promise you that, because we've all been talking about him. Yeah, exactly. You know, we'll be doing that. Mike, there's one other name on your list that both you and I have. You know, we all have him there, and I guess it's the comfort factor. Where are we at on Blake Martinez this year, coming off of that ACL? Did he get hurt at an early enough time last year that he's going to be ready for week 1?
Yeah, I think he got hurt a few games in.
Game 3 actually is when it was. Yes.
Yeah. So I am. I mean, it sounds like he's, just kind of getting into the swing of things, and he's just a guy that once he's on the field, he doesn't come off, and he's a tackle machine. So I'm ranking him healthy, and I'm more than comfortable having him as an LB1. And if like I've said this before, if your league drafts with how people scored last year, they're not going to find him in anywhere near the top. So if he falls, grab him.
Yep, I think so. I think that's my case as well. It was limited to the ACL, wasn't MCL, didn't have any additional nagging injuries. Like I said, it sucks that we lost a full season almost out of him last year. But if you look at, hell, in the time that he played, he was on pace. Don't we hate this? Oh, he was pacing, extrapolating, but he was on pace for 208 tackles last year if he had played, based off of what he did in weeks 1 and 2. But still, I love the fact that he's playing in Martindale's defense too. I think we might see him, the pressures could go up just a little bit. He might be asked to get in the backfield just a little bit more. Hollywood.
In 3 games, he had a 16.2% tackle rate.
Yeah. Not a little probably unsustainable. We know.
Yeah, a little bit. But he has averaged, I think he's been around 14 or 15%.
Yeah. There's nothing bad. 44 career tackles for a loss. 655 the total tackles over his 5-year career. Sean has a question. Do you guys really trust Darius Leonard to be healthy enough and play enough games to finish top 10 this year? That is the question. There is, I'll start real quick just because I didn't think last year when there was rumors and notes and information coming out that he had an ankle injury so severe that he needed ankle surgery as a result. And all he did last year was pretty much played the 16 games for like the first time in his career. He was number 1 linebacker against the run. He had 5 forced fumbles. He had 8 total, which led all the NFL. And his 4 interceptions were 12th amongst not linebackers, everybody in the NFL. So, he was doing high splash plays with an ankle. If there's someone that I'm going to trust to be healthy and actually play through it, it's probably Darius Leonard. What about you guys?
Yeah.
Jorge?
Yes.
Yes,
everything you just
Tyler might drop in.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, it wasn't a Booger Farland analysis like it was.
Yes.
No, exactly. Well, when you're on the field, that's how you get the points, and that's how you win your fantasy matchups. There you go. There's your Booger Farland analysis right there.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. He is. It made him such a great linebacker. It makes him a great linebacker. I shouldn't say it in the past tense. He does everything. He goes everywhere. He plays all over the field. A linebacker that Hollywood has that's also from the Colts. I'm also interested in hearing about that because I really like Bobby Okariki. But we talk about our fantasy point scoring, and he finished as the LB14, and that's with being injured. Yeah. So imagine what he would do if he was healthy for a full season. So yeah, I could see him in the top 10. Obviously.
He is a stat stuffer. He is a stat box score stuffer.
Just constant. Hollywood, do you have anything extra on Darius Leonard, or are you? There's a little bit of concern, right? Just a little bit, right?
Yeah, he had the ankle injury and now this little back thing going on. So I guess there's always cause for concern, especially when you kind of play like he does. He does a little bit of everything, right? So But I don't think it's enough to make me move him. I mean, if it was something super serious, then yeah, you probably change what you're looking at or how you're thinking. But, his injuries have kind of hit at the right time. It's not causing him to miss a whole lot of games, if any. He's getting healed up pretty well fairly quickly. So I'm not concerned majorly, but, it's something you got to think about, I think.
Yeah.
But I think from a redraft, I have no problem trusting him.
Right.
But I guess when it comes down to it, I mean, he's going to be 27 at the end of July.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem putting him on your trade block and seeing what kind of haul you can get. Because if you can get a haul for him in Dynasty,
exactly.
I would kind of be like, yeah, I'm worried about the back, and let's just kind of see what you can get for him. If you can get a haul in Dynasty, yeah, but for redraft this year,
that's a great point. I'm
moving forward with all speed with him in redraft.
I think we just don't want to see. I think we all are. If there's one thing that I know collectively agree on, is that we hope for 16 to 17 games out of Darius Leonard, because football's better when Darius Leonard is on the field. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, yeah, football is better, is good when you have the best players playing, and that's not obviously we like talking defensive players. Aaron Donald, Darius Leonard, all those guys. But even on the offensive side, football is better when the elite players are playing.
Exactly, and that was a sign.
You're walking on that tightrope there, Mike, with Booger Farland and Yep, right on that line. I'm not going to say you did, but right on the line.
That is okay. I want to talk about what you alluded to, though. Let's Hollywood, not to say save the best for last, but we'll save the last for last. We'll save the last for last and talk and go over your top 15, which is Foye Oluokun at 1, Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Roquan Smith, Devon White, Blake Martinez, the aforementioned Darius Leonard, Micah Parsons, Fred Warner, CJ Mosley, Devandra Campbell, Eric Kendricks, Bobby Okariki, Cole Holcomb, and Deion Jones. There's another name that we all four have, kind of bounces around. I think, again, probably just underappreciated a little bit is Eric Kendricks. And Eric Kendricks easily could be your number one linebacker to start off and fill admirably. Let's, dump some praise on Eric Kendricks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in Minnesota, like I said, doesn't have a whole lot of competition, right? I mean, that's one thing I look at. How much competition do you have? Now, he had 143 tackles, the 5 sacks. Does he get those this year? I don't know that his numbers for sacks will be that high because they're going to have Danielle Hunter back, right? And if he's Danielle Hunter of old and healthy, I think those sacks come down quite a bit. I don't see anything that would make me be worrisome other than his sacks, really. He's still going to get the tackles. I just don't see anything that's going to make me move. He's not somebody that I'm actively going after.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not somebody that I'm shying away from either, right? I think if some of your major options are gone, you're going to be comfortable picking him up and rolling with him. You're not going to have a lot of concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, maybe if you can get some of the guys right next to him, maybe you can pass on him and pick one of them up at a cheaper value. So
yeah, he's like that. It's like warm comfort food. He's going to give you that solid. He's like, I think the Juicy Lucy is a Minnesota hamburger, if I'm not mistaken. And that is, if you're not familiar, is basically 2 burger patties with cheese stuffed in the middle and then grilled so it oozes out.
Well, I'm not familiar with that, but I'm glad you explained that very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, that is exactly what that is, and it is delicious.
We almost went down the road.
He's the Southern comfort food. He's the Southern comfort food. He's shrimp and grits with a side of mac and cheese.
He said Juicy Lucy and the wheels was in overdrive already. So
wait. And I'm not going to gloss over what did you say about Southern food?
I said,
Did
no,
you-
I love Southern food. I hate Southern Comfort, the drink. That's all I heard you say.
I thought
Oh,
I heard you say
what
you
are you,
hate
12 years old,
Southern
Jorge? Southern
food,
Comfort's
and
garbage.
we were no.
Oh, no, we were not going to argue on that. No, sir. Have you seen my stature?
Okay,
my physique?
we're gonna have hands here.
This is a body built on Southern.
But still,
comfort
I
food.
heard you hate Southern food, and that's what I heard, and that's what I'm sticking with. So Nate hates Southern food.
I hate all things
In other words,
Southern.
Mike initiates violence. Go.
Yes,
Yes.
and I have a new best friend, and that is Sean, because Sean agrees with me, and it's not my best friend just because he agrees with me, but because it is a quality take. Southern Comfort is trash.
Oh, it is. It's awful.
And Jorge, you're drinking Southern Comfort shots when we see you in Canton, just so you know. You
Oh,
signed
is that
up for
how
that.
it works? Oh, is that what I did? So I have a question going back to Eric Hendrickson, I guess, for all of you. We're looking at, going from left to right. It's like a gradual decrease here. I'm not so much worried about Jordan Hicks getting in the way of Eric Kendricks getting his tackles as we're going down. Nate, Mike, what are your thoughts on, Hicks now being in Minnesota and impacting Eric Kendricks' performance?
And
I don't think it's going to be much. I mean, I do think Hicks is going to be pretty close to a full-time linebacker. I think it's going to be both of them on the field, but Kendricks had a career year in tackles, so that kind of jumps out. He went from basically averaging about 110 a year to 143, so that was a pretty big jump. But I think in 2020 he missed a couple of games, so I think that kind of brought him down. But no, he's a tackler. I'm not really at all worried with Hicks and impeding any of his numbers.
Yeah, I mean, there's it goes in line, like you said. He had the most solo tackles of his career, most assisted tackles of his career at the age 30 season, on the heels of the most snaps of his career too, 1,032. So add that in. The sacks, Hollywood, I do agree with you. I think that might be something. I mean, his 5 sacks last year equaled his production in terms of sacks from 2016 to 2020 combined.
Mm-hmm.
So he had 5 total between those 4 seasons, 5 last year. He had 4 in his rookie season. But you're right. I think Danielle Hunter, I think the addition of Darius Smith's going to take away some of the necessity for him to have to do that. But again, different leagues. The solo tackle numbers should be there. I'm comfortable with that. And that's why I have, he's kind of in my comfort level. He's probably not a person I'm actually actively targeting either at that spot. Just because I think he's going to finish this high doesn't mean he's a person I guess say, let's look at the next person on your list, Hollywood, is a person who very easily could outproduce Eric Kendricks, and that's Bobby Okariki. So Bobby Okariki, tell us about him. And then 2, if you think there was a chance if Darius Leonard does miss any time, how high would you move Okariki up your list?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how good Leonard is, right? Mike alluded to it. He's a box score filler, right? He does a little bit of everything, and he's a stud. He's a superstar. So even with that and him playing, Okariki, 132 tackles. That's 10 more than what Leonard had last year. So your question is, if Leonard is forced to miss time with any significant injury, then yeah, I think you move Okariki way up. Now, I don't know that he's going to be that stat box filler, a little bit of everything. I don't think he's going to do that. He may get some plays, but I don't think he'll be that. But I would expect his tackles to go way up. Yeah. I think if Leonard's out for any amount of time, Okariki could easily get 150 tackles, right?
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Now, before we jump into the final couple round table, let's answer the hard-hitting questions here. Anybody sipping on anything tonight? You guys got any beers? Hollywood or Jorge does. A little Sam Adams. What is that, Jorge?
Looks like summer ale.
You're on mute, so I'm guessing it's doing its job.
Yeah, it is. I got Sam and a porch rocker.
Nice.
Hollywood, no Budweiser for you?
Oh yeah. I've got the Budweiser, and
okay.
I've got a little peach crown sitting back here behind me for when we get done.
And you and Sean, look at that. Sean's making friends with everybody. He agrees with me, says Southern Comfort's trash. Peach Crown is delicious. Mike and I look like we're the two not drinking time. I went pretty hard last night. Carrie had some friends over, and so then I tried hanging with them, and that's bad news because
the key word in that whole sentence was tried.
Oh, I mean, I succeeded, but as each subsequent 365 days advances, that hangover effect and or the recovery gets a little bit longer as we learn. Mike learned on his trip to Orlando recently as well. So that's what we're sipping on. Let's drink in a little bit more knowledge as far as some of the questions. And I didn't ask you guys these questions in advance, so I'm doing a terrible job of setting up what I'm asked. But Jorge, you have your top 15. A year from now, whose name of one of them will not be in the top 15 that you have in your rankings?
We won't see Holcomb.
Okay. Mike, how about yours?
I think out of mine, I don't think we'll see Micah Parsons.
Ooh, good. I like that. Hollywood, what about you?
Man, that's tough if we're only picking one.
I mean, you can pick more than one if you want, but
I'm going to go on a limb here. I think it's Eric Kendricks.
Okay. I actually
he's the one who disappears.
I was kind of, looking at the same. It's like, man, age 31 season, what's going to happen? But then I look at a player who, like I have as my number 2, and Bobby Wagner, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down, at all. We didn't talk about Bobby Wagner real quick, you guys. Jorge, we'll start with you. What do you think? Do you think the change to the Rams is going to be a nice, smooth change, and you're going to see similar production like you saw with Seattle?
Yes, I think it's going to be a pissed off linebacker who can't wait to play Seattle twice a year and is going to go nuts for Los Angeles.
That'll be a must-watch game for sure. I guess before we wrap up, we got just maybe one last little question you guys can ask.
Before you go, you kind of mentioned it. With your last question, who's the one linebacker that we see dropping off our list, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, mine's Tremaine Edmonds for me, by the way.
Right.
I see him dropping off this list in about 15 minutes.
We're doing this as redraft, which most of us, for the most part, play Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
You take out the redraft and you put in the word Dynasty here.
Mm-hmm.
No matter which list we're looking at, they completely change a lot, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
Yep.
I think that here I could
easily move probably 4, maybe 5 names off my list easily.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that we will have this conversation here probably sooner rather than later when we do our dynasty versus redraft rankings and, comparisons and contrasts and see just who, maybe makes the biggest move, et cetera. We'll save that for another time. But guys, any final words? Anything you guys are working on that you want to let everybody know about?
Actually, I got two things. I got 2 things. So, Nate, you asked us about a linebacker who's going to fall off,
mm-hmm.
and I'll start since I'm asking the question. Who's the linebacker that you have outside of your top 15 that is going to make your top 15 at the end of the year? I've got 2. The one kind of depends on his role because it really kind of depends on his role. But that for me, I got 2. One, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah,
okay,
and Xavin Collins. So with Koramoah, I've been, and I know it's only OTAs. I've been seeing a lot of Jacob Phillips and Anthony Walker. So I don't, but JOK is definitely getting some playing time. So if JOK gets that 3-down role, plays 900 snaps, I don't see any reason why he can't be a top 15. And I do think Xavin Collins definitely is going to be one of those guys that hits the top 15. Second question will be for Nate or will be Jorge and Hollywood.
Okay.
Why no Logan Wilson? Nate and all the other guys, go ahead with the question I just posed.
So I am agreeing with you. I think Xavin Collins by the end of the season will be higher than Isaiah Simmons. I think that a lot's going to come down to Isaiah Simmons' ability. If he's still, he made that improvement in coverage. We saw that. That's one step. That was the key step to having him stay on the field. They said that in 2020. That was the one reason why he didn't play as much, as he was getting burnt in practice consistently, and they didn't want to trust him. So they trusted him to get on the field. But I think Xavin Collins, who we all got the wool pulled over our eyes last year too. I mean, we had these same conversations about him, and we were reading coach speak. He's going to be on the field. He's looking like an every down linebacker, this and that, and then he didn't play. But love Xavin Collins there. I think JOK I have at I think he's 17 or 18 on my list right now.
Yeah,
so he's not too far out of that conversation. And then, if we're going to go a third, it would maybe be Cody Barton. I want to see that progression. He didn't show much necessarily, but he didn't have much to do prior to week 17, 18 last year. So it's just opportunity will breed, potential success. And then now you guys go ahead if you want to answer that question, or if you want to go into, explaining why you don't have Logan Wilson. Jorge, I love Logan Wilson last year, so that really hurts.
Yeah, well, so I have him as my linebacker 17, so he's not too far off. And to answer, or not answer, but to respond to what Mike asked you, he's somebody who I could definitely see jumping into my top 15. The reason I don't have him in my top 15 is because when I think about the Bengals defense, I don't think linebacker, central, tackle, university. I think pass rush, college. I think Trey Hendrickson. I see Sam Hubbard. I see that being the bread and butter, the aggressiveness on this Bengals defense. I don't see necessarily the necessity for Logan Wilson to be the quote unquote hashtag tackle machine that a lot of people are expecting. That being said, like I said, I still think there's plenty of upside. He's linebacker 17 for me. So that would be my rationale there.
Hollywood, how about you, buddy?
Yeah. So both are Logan Wilson, right? Wilson was maybe the hardest one outside of Parsons for me to rank. And I love Wilson as much as anybody. Was super high on him coming out. And it's not so much that he's not worthy of being on that list, but who you knocking off, right? I mean, I guess you can make a case for about anybody. So I've got him at 16. If you want to play that game, which me and Mike don't like to do, but, if he goes somewhere and it's not very conducive to his game, then you can move him out, or injuries or whatever. You can play the what ifs. So I have Wilson at 16. The one thing that's causing me to pump the brakes is his pass coverage numbers, and it's not because they're bad, because he had 2 interceptions and 3 pass deflections as a rookie, 4 interceptions and 4 pass deflections last year. So the tackle numbers I'm not worried about, because I think he's the guy there. Is he going to be able to sustain those kind of pass coverage numbers, which I think he is, but I want to see that in year 3. You give me this year another 100 tackle season, and he's getting you 2 or 3 interceptions with the pass deflections. I think he easily is in the top 15 by the time the season's over.
He definitely has a nice ability in terms of the quarterbacks that he'll be facing in the North for the most part. I don't think we're going to see Deshaun Watson anytime soon, and obviously we don't know what we're going to get in Pittsburgh. But that it's interesting. I want to touch on what Sean just mentioned. Is one of the guys that I know, at least 3 of us. Hollywood, I don't know your opinion. Number one, maybe you haven't read my most recent article over at fantasyandframes.com where I highlight Divine Diablo as a dynasty target in IDP. But what I know, Mike and Jorge and myself last year, kind of came around, started liking what we were seeing. What do you think of Diablo, the converted safety to linebacker?
I'm targeting him as like an LB3. No problem. I'll gladly take him over. I'll let people overdraft Denzel Perriman all day long, and I'll just take Divine Diablo.
Exactly. I mean, if you can get him as an LB3, you're coming out smelling like a rose, right? I mean, the upside's there. usually when you make a position change, there's issues, but he's probably making, I don't want to say the easiest, but maybe it is, from safety to linebacker, right? Maybe that's the easiest transition. He's going to see a much clearer path to opportunities on the field, making plays. Yeah, I mean, 45 tackles last year. I think that if he gets in a starting role, that's going to go way up, right? I mean, he probably doubles that or gets close to double that. So that would put him in that 90 to 100 range. If you can get a player like that, like Mike said, if you can get him as an LB3, you're basically still in. And again, like Mike said, there's no way I'm taking a Denzel Perriman or even what's the other one I was thinking of?
Jalen Brown,
TJ Edwards, Quincy Williams,
any of those.
Yeah,
no, White. Kazar White. I think I'd take him over Kazar White too.
I do want to watch.
The value's there, so I think those guys kind of drop back down some. So
he hasn't participated in OTAs, and he was wearing the red non-contact jersey so far. I know last year he suffered the concussion. I don't believe that's still obviously a lingering effect from last year, but that's the only thing I would pay attention to is what's going on so far now. Jorge, final words on Devon Diablo.
A 2% missed tackle rate. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
I don't see him having any problem getting by Jayon Brown, who they brought in, which I don't understand why they felt they needed to, other than just a depth piece at the linebacking position. So I'm very excited. And your article is fantastic over at fantasyandframes.com.
Oh, thank you so much.
Brown might be a little bit better in coverage, but not enough to make me want
Titan homer. Jeez.
No, I didn't think they should have brought Brown back last year. I was ready to
always
move on from him.
No, I'm right there with you. Speaking of 2% missed tackle rate, one of the guys we didn't talk much about was Devandra Campbell. Shockingly, last year, 2.7% missed tackle rate. Amazing for a gentleman who played as many snaps as he did. Mm-hmm. Incredible. Yeah. So, I think that wraps it up. I mean, any other Mike? Excellent questions at the end. Hollywood, any questions or anything you may have? I mean, I know we're past the hour mark, but hey, football knows IDP talk knows no boundaries.
No, I mean, this, like I said, I'm so used to playing Dynasty, right? I have a couple of redraft leagues just for the knowledge and the experience of keeping up with it. But it's just interesting to see what we're doing in redraft, and then knowing I play Dynasty, how much these lists would change. I mean, and like I said earlier, you could pick any one of our four, and I think y'all would agree they would drastically change.
Mm-hmm. And a point like Sean here makes, Denzel Perriman, Jayon Brown, Micah Kaiser, Kenny Young is the other linebacker for the Raiders too that's not even on here, and none of them are signed through next year. So immediately, as soon as Devon Diablo produces, he's going to sign. They'll try to sign him. Hopefully, they'll sign him to an extension, and then again, he'll be in maybe this top 15 list here. Listening real quick, and you guys tell me if this would be a team. We're going to forecast this is your linebacker 1, 2, and 3. Mike, I'll start with you. Your list or your linebackers are given to you, and you have Darius Leonard, Cody Barton, and Devon Diablo are your 3 linebackers. Are you thumbs up or thumbs down with those 3 for the season? Oh, he's doing a super dance.
I'm more than happy. I am more than happy leaving with those 3.
Look at that. We got the first dance of the season. This is good. We need some music.
And that is only being caught on the live stream. That'll, hopefully you guys all caught that live. If you guys are audio only.
Oh, don't worry.
Oh, we'll make it lives
forever.
Or GIF, whatever.
That is good. All right. Hollywood, same. I can mix up I'm going to leave the last 2 for you, but insert whoever you want as your number 1. We'll say, Aluakon and then Cody Barton and Devon Diablo. You giving a dance or are you thumbs up in it?
First of all, there's no way my dance moves are anywhere near as good as what we just witnessed right here from Smooth Jazz, which makes sense, right? Smooth Jazz, the dance moves, it all comes together, right? So, but yeah, if that's my three, then yeah, I'm doing some kind of happy, crazy dance, and I'm not even concerned with it.
And that's doable. That is extremely doable. Do you have access easily to your list of your ADPs right now? If you don't, no big deal. We'll talk about this later, but I'm interested to see just how feasible and what the investment would be to get those three. Why you even, think it up, look it up, or don't even worry about it.
Leonard is probably the most expensive out of them, because I think in most IDP leagues or most redraft, when I look, Leonard is usually one of those top IDPs that goes, and it's usually 6th or 7th round.
So let me ask you this, not to interrupt you. Olakun, with that 192 tackle season last year. Now, I know he moved from Atlanta to Jaguars.
Mm-hmm.
In a redraft here, we're talking. Don't you think he's going to be he would push Leonard a little bit right here? As far as draft capital, what you're having to invest in him as far as
I think he's gonna push. I think he's gonna push, but I think in terms of the linebackers, I'm almost thinking I'd almost rather have Leonard over Oluokun, but I think both are going to be very expensive. I think last season I tried something. I took Roquan Smith as my first IDP, and I think I did it in like the 5th or the 6th round. And boy, when you take an IDP that early, oof. Your offensive guys. I mean, it really is. I tested that theory, and it's when you go IDP early, the offense gets shallow real quick.
Yeah, it's hard. Or let me ask you this: if you knew going in, not that you it's like a keeper or anything, but you have it locked in, you're in an IDP league with people that don't watch this show or don't listen to us, and they're not hip to Cody Barton, they're not hip to Divine Diablo. Would knowing that you have those two, and maybe you're comfortable just waiting until later rounds and scooping up someone like a Cole Holcomb as your one with those two, do you just address and go heavy at defensive end, defensive line with the Myles Garretts of the world and load up on defensive line first, knowing you can get the linebacker depth? Because I don't think that we have the defensive line depth, like, dynamite pieces, diamonds in the rough as we have with those two linebackers.
If that's a scenario, I'm looking for dual eligibility everywhere I can. I'm looking for a Darius Smith. I'm looking for a TJ Watt. I'm looking for these elite producers that can rush the passer as well as get the tackle volume for my defensive line. I mean, I'm not thrilled that Cole Holcomb is my one with Diablo. We don't know his situation yet, although we do like him as a prospect. Love the Cody Barton. Obviously, I think he's the sweetheart of everybody's this year's fantasy content wheel. Fantasy content wheel, whatever. But no, I would definitely look at filling my rosters with more dual eligibility players to see if I can get some help with my defensive line and get the production somewhere else on my IDP positions.
Nice.
See, I think what's becoming interesting. Linebacker, I think, looks deep, but I think when you kind of break it down, when you look at it, it's almost not, just because the number of like true 3-down guys is very little. Right. So I think when you get past that top 30, you're banking, you're hoping guys are going to be 3-down guys, or you're hoping for like 80 to 85% of the snaps. And it's funny now that those guys are not still as useful. Mm-hmm. I remember just even a few years ago, if a guy's playing 80% of the snaps, he was useless. Now that's almost becoming, with the way the linebacker is, that's those guys now are kind of like your third linebacker now. So I think the true 100% 3-down guys, it's almost like the running back position. You've got a handful of like those bell cow backs, but then once those guys are gone, it's tough.
I would agree, and I think once 30 is, wouldn't you agree, Mike? I think if you're past 25 to 30, you're kind of pushing it, right? You're pushing the line a little bit.
I think so. I think because once you get past the 30s, I think we all, I think you've got Tremaine Edmonds, Bobby Okariki, DeMario Davis. You got those guys within the top 30, but then,
right.
You've got, I think we're expecting big things out of Pete Werner, but
Mm-hmm.
we still don't know. And then there's a lot of unknowns after that top 30.
So with that thinking, wouldn't me, myself, if I'm getting down into that 25 plus range,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say I've got a couple of decent linebackers,
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost looking at, I don't want to say lottery shots, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe a Christian Harris for Houston, because the volume, if he can get on the field, the volume, he's a 2-down thumper. He's not really a 3-down guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the volume for him is going to be there. So I think if I'm okay with those two guys and I'm not seeing the value or not really seeing anything else, maybe I'm switching gears a little bit and kind of trying to target a player like Christian Harris, a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, another rookie could be. We've heard a lot of hype about Quay Walker so far. I mean, that might be the hype train of the offseason so far, and it's even now progressing into Devon White talk, where that's is that a name? You're right. I'm looking at the top, my top 30, and man, there's a lot of pieces that if you said this is your LB3 or 2, I would not be happy with that. I'm going to tell you, it's something. Everybody gets excited about linebackers because I think we think it's kind of like this overabundance of ability because, well, they're always the tackle volume guys. They're always this, but like you mentioned, full-time linebacker being 75%, like Sean says, and like we all agree, it's the 3-down. The comparison to the running back is a fair comparison. It's hard to find a bell cow linebacker now, which is just it's crazy. But we will continue to discuss this as the season gets closer. I think we only have about 11 Sundays left until football starts or something like that, I think is what I saw. So that's
insane.
Sweet.
I know.
Insane.
It'll be here before we know it, and we will have covered every name under the sun. We will have so much IDP content over at Fantasy and Frames. Mike will have so much content 4for4. Hollywood will have so much content that, from IDP Nation to all of his, your Devi work that you're doing. I can't keep up with you guys. So forgive me if I leave anything out. Obviously, you know where to follow everybody here at Mike_Wohlert, at Hollywood Titan, Jorge, at Jorge B. Edwards, or at boogerwannabe.com. You can find his work. Mike's dance moves you can find at Magic Mike 3, the prequel. He's the pre-Channing Tatum dancers. We got all his moves from. That'll be straight. Yeah, you can see it's straight to Netflix. Yeah. NC-17.
Dude, not straight to Netflix. We're going straight to like Fubo.
Fubo TV, exactly.
I'm not going to. No, we're going straight to Fubo. No, not hitting Netflix. Straight to Crackle.
Wow.
The sad thing is I have so many of these different streaming ones because we find there's one movie or something on that's only on that, and oh boy. But
I do not have a Netflix body.
Give it time. Everybody does. You never know. But for everybody listening, everybody watching, thank you so much for the engagement. Thank you so much for the fact that now there is the best team name of the year. Magic Mike Wohlert will be a team name. I can't wait. I hope, Sean, that it's in the Fantasy and Frames charity tournament, the 4-Eye Championships.
Pixar, it didn't happen.
There will be more information steadily coming out. We will, I believe, start to do, more of that information. We'll have the giveaways. We'll start doing all of the announcements with invitations. Stay tuned to obviously this podcast where we will give away plenty of spots. We'll more to come. I don't have all the information. I can see Jorge glaring at me like, don't you say too much, you idiot. Do nothing dumb.
I think towards the end of June we'll be getting into invitations and hopefully drafts. So.
Perfect. And I will have some Crown Peach for everybody that week. So for Jorge, for Hollywood, and for Mike, Magic Mike, that is, I'm Nate. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
I didn't mean to hurt you. Coach told me to.